Hello and welcome to another episode of MLB Round. My name is Jeremy Stewart. This season is finally underway. The full 162-game season after last year's shortened season is underway, with fans being committed to actually in every single stadium across the league, and in some cases, there's a couple changes, a 100% capacity. So, fans going out as they have for the past 4 days, with the exception of now one team. There's one team um, that has not my hometown Washington Nationals, but every other team playing 2 games across the weekend, and then the next team, like the first place next weekend, playing the Phillies right now. And the Phillies, who very impressive in their opening series, they were able to sweep the Atlanta Braves and Braves going off to start their season tomorrow, as the Braves have to play doubleheader in Washington. But some headlines other than that from across the league, of course, I think mostly there are very few COVID issues that's containing, but that's actually come up from Florida and Arizona to in some stadiums and some cities that's been some COVID issues about internationally, holding multiple cases of COVID, which caused them to not be able to start their season on time against the Mets. But across the league so far, some very surprising storylines. Of course, the biggest disappointments in the National League last year, and with the Marlins making the playoffs, the Marlins and Padres, the Phillies now have the longest drought in the National League. The Phillies sweeping the 2-time defending NL East champion Atlanta Braves, getting off to a great start for them. Another, probably the biggest surprise, the Baltimore Orioles sweeping the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park. The Red Sox with their worst start to the season at home since 1948, losing 3 straight at Fenway. The Royals as well. The Royals and Orioles are both in first place in their divisions. The Royals with a 3-1 record now. The Red 3, and Blue Jays taking 2 of 3 at Yankee Stadium. So the Red Sox and the Yankees going a combined 1-5 against the Royals and Blue Jays, both at home at Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium. So the AL East is all over the place. And the Rays right there in the middle, starting their season with 3 in Miami. In the AL West, the Astros 4-0, starting their season with a clean sweep of the Athletics. Quite a few sweeps across the league. Chicago 1-3, one of the favorites in the AL Central. Getting underway, or finishing against the Angels yesterday in Anaheim. But that game, Shohei Ohtani, the two-way slugging starting pitcher yesterday for the very first time DHing in a game he's starting the pitcher that he's the starting pitcher in, as pretty much his whole career doing is having him having him pitch and then day off before pitching, day off after pitching, and DHing every other game. Albert Pujols into the field to play first base. But yesterday, for the first time, he played both, and he was extremely impressive as he hit a home run in his first at bat. With 5 very good innings, some defensive miscues caused him to not be in line for the win. Angels did get the win, 7-4, and a walk-off 3-run home run by Jared Walsh. That was kind of lost in everything. Is that the Angels were off the bat of 2 home runs, including a walk-off 3-run bomb, 4 RBI from former 2-way player Jared Walsh. But the Angels going with an NL Ohtani pitching and batting second, the first player in 115 years to do so. Ohtani batting second yesterday, and home run, as I said, also yesterday he did, to add to the list of his incredible accomplishments yesterday, was able to the hardest hit ball by any position player all season and the hardest pitch thrown by any pitcher. So the fact that he did both of those in the same game, I mean, he really is on a different level. and he is the baseball. He can stay healthy. It all depends on him staying healthy. Of course, he has had injury issues in the past, and he did have to get surgery, or he was forced to not pitch for a while. But um, the Angels, just the only thing that they had to focus on last as Jared Walsh was able to play first base, so Pujols didn't have to play the field. But with Ohtani batting second, no matter how good of a hitter he is, once he leaves the game, they don't have that DH. So they had to bring in Steve Cishek with Albert Pujols, pinch it with Dexter Fowler in the ninth inning, which fortunately was able to work out for them. And this is the way the Angels are going to make playoffs, which is very possible. They're going to need to do it without relying completely on Mike Trout. So this lineup is spectacular. I mean, batting second, David Fletcher at the top of the lineup, 3-4-5, one of the best 3-4-5s in baseball. Trout, Rendon, and then we saw what Jared Walsh can do last night. Justin Upton, Jose Iglesias, Juan Lagares, and then Max Stassi. So it really is a great lineup. And the Angels, the only issue with them have been pitching. The Angels have been all over the place pitching. They've had this great lineup for a couple of years. They're wasting that. They're going to need to get pitching, whether that's the trades, just production from their rotation. Andrew Heaney, Griffin Canning, and Jose Quintana rounding out the rotation after Ohtani. Bundy, I think, has a chance to kind of revitalize his career after a disappointing start to it in Baltimore. But and Andrew Heaney as well. But Griffin Canning and Jose Quintana as your 4 and 5 is a bit tough, and it will not last. So if the Angels are still in it, once they should really consider adding another arm to their pitching, because that's what they're going to need to push them over, especially in a division like the AL West. Other news from around the league: Nick Castellanos yesterday is Nick Castellanos yelling at a Cardinals pitcher. Just all he said was, "Let's effing go." But the benches just emptied the dugouts, and Castellanos was called by the league that he was igniting a benches clearing incident, which caused him to get suspended for 2 games. I think the reaction to that across baseball has been pretty negative, kind of pretty ridiculous to get suspended for that. He didn't throw any punches. There was really not much of a brawl or anything. Baseball players tend to empty the benches and the bullpens for seemingly no reason at all. But he just seemed excited. He had it on a pitch that was possibly on purpose. So it is really difficult to tell. But Nick Castellanos, encouraged looking at that story, just seeing what happened. It really was not that big of a deal. It's kind of a 2-game suspension is not that important in MLB. 2 games at 162, but it is kind of ridiculous. Nick Castellanos getting that suspension, first suspension of the also, Max Scherzer as the Nationals and Braves getting underway with a classic doubleheader. Max Scherzer getting the start for the Nationals tomorrow, and Washington underway, especially after Atlanta getting off kind of the reeling a little bit after this terrible start of the season, getting swept by the Phillies. So they're gonna have to kind of jump back into things. Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, Patrick Corbin, these big 3 at the top of the lineup, but are at the top of the rotation for Washington over the next few. But one new rule permanent from last year that was changed from last year, now permanent, of course, couple new rules: the runner on second start extra innings and the 7-inning doubleheaders. We'll see that tomorrow as Washington and Atlanta get underway with a doubleheader in the first game of the season for Washington, the second series of the year for Atlanta. 7-inning doubleheaders, two 7-inning doubleheaders, and we'll be able to see that in a game with fans for the first time tomorrow. The Texas Rangers, as I mentioned, packed their stadium. 40,000 people. It is quite a sight to see. Obviously masks mandated, but the first packed baseball stadium in almost 2 years. Of course, Globe Life Field where they play, their brand new stadium last year, did host the World Series, and they did have fans at the World Series, yes, and LCS, but those were not sellouts by any means. Those were not packed stadiums. The Rangers today, 40,000 people, 40,000 person packed house in Arlington. So very exciting to see, regardless of opinions health wise on it. They do have a packed stadium. It is legal in Texas, so just very cool to see a packed house for the first time in a couple of years. But one place we will not see a packed house is coming up at this summer, wherever it may be. We don't know where it is. We know where it won't be. Is Atlanta, Georgia, as MLB has decided to take out to remove the All-Star game from Atlanta, take it away, and that is of course due to the law that was recently is allegedly suppressing voters. So MLB on that as a way to has removed the All-Star game from Atlanta for one reason or another, but we don't know where it'll be. It will not be in Atlanta. The Braves, who have been wearing for the past few games, have been wearing also on their jersey, very awkwardly covering them up. They're still like visible under the jersey or on top of the jersey on the sleeves. So very awkward. But a situation like this, where they've obviously been hyping and promoting the game for a long time, and then now it is taken away. It is tough, and it is a tough PR for the Braves, Major League Baseball. But MLB said in their statement, Rob Manfred saying the league is going to a new host city, and details about these events will be announced shortly. Dodger Stadium was supposed to host the All-Star game last year. Looks like they will not host it until next year. Next in the plan. MLB saying they quote, Major League Baseball fundamentally supports voting rights for all Americans and opposes restrictions to the ballot box. In 2020, MLB became the first professional sports league to join the nonpartisan Civic Alliance to help build a future in which everyone participates in shaping the United States. We're using our platform to encourage baseball fans and communities throughout our country to perform their civic duty and actively participate in the voting process. So MLB, it's like they want to be back in Atlanta at some point, and obviously they have the Braves, all Braves home games there, but they want to host the game in Atlanta. They just were protesting the inaction. Otherwise, around the league, as we said, some surprising starts to the season. Seattle 2-1, 3 interleague series in the first weekend of the season. Seattle in one of them hosted the only NL series. Seattle winning that series 2-1, and coming back from 6-1 down in the 8th inning on opening, or the biggest opening night comebacks in MLB history, as the Mariners come back to beat the Giants after beating 6-1 in the 8th. Very exciting game, and the Mariners, very exciting future for them, as they of course have the longest playoff drought in professional sports. Haven't made the playoffs since their 100th, an all-time record in 2001, and it still kind of baffles me that a team has the all-time record in wins, hasn't won the World yet, even including that year. They went 116, 66, didn't make the World Series, or didn't even make, didn't win or make the World Series. But they are building a really good team from the ground up, as they have, of course, J.P. Crawford, Kyle Seager, Evan White starting at first base in the corner, the hot corner as he's been for a while. J.P. Crawford short, Taylor Trammell, spectacular. He's been a very hyped prospect, and he was great in his debut. Mitch Haniger as well. Then in their rotation, Yusei Kikuchi, Nick Markakis, Justin Dunn, Kendall Graveman. It's not necessarily a playoff team, especially in that division where there's kind of the Astros, who have been good for a long time, and the other teams getting better at the same time. The Angels as well. The Rangers, the A's should not. The A's are theoretically supposed to be better, but not great. But Seattle and LA kind of looks like they're going to be fighting for that spot right behind Houston. just assuming Houston's able to win that division again, but to a smaller playoff pool. So it will be a little bit tougher to make the playoffs this year across both leagues. As well, we had 8 teams in each leagues, or like the NHL and NBA playoffs. So the Mariners is their year, but I actually think they are on the right track for a very long time. I mean, this is a team that over the years has had stars, obviously Kyle Seager, but even mega Hall of Fame stars. I think Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey Jr., Randy Johnson. I mean, arguably the best hitter and best pitcher ever. There would be an argument for that on Ken Griffey Jr. and Randy Johnson. Stars like, and yeah, Ichiro, of course, one of the most exciting players of this century, and they have never been able to find that success or even make the playoffs. So, CW will be very exciting. I don't think it'll be this year, but I do think the Mariners can make playoffs, and it will make playoffs in the next 3 to 4 years. Next year. Next year's the earliest. It's not going to happen this year, but it could. Um, as I mentioned, how the Rangers have a packed crowd on opening day, so there was kind of some eyes on them. Texas Governor Greg was planning to throw the first pitch at the Rangers game today, but after the MLB moved the All-Star game out of Georgia to protest that, he is protesting all MLB and not throwing that pitch. So, unfortunately, to get politics and baseball so that was just a major bit of news, as the Rangers were kind of on the spotlight for their home opener today, but and that's something missed out on. One other thing I want to touch, not specifically, but college baseball news, just because Vanderbilt, of course, a baseball blue blood, a baseball powerhouse. 2 of the most dominant pitchers of this year, and he's really amazing. Kumar Rocker is probably going to be a number 1 overall pick. Is the number 1, and he's been spectacular, as he always is. But then Jack Leiter, son of former MLB left-handed pitcher and MLB Network Al Leiter. Jack Leiter has just been beyond belief this year. He has this year 7-0, 0.43 ERA, allowing 0.86 runs per 9 innings, 42 innings, allowing just 10 hits, 2 earned runs in 42 innings. It really kind of is beyond belief how someone is able to be as dominant or less. In addition, he's got 71 strikeouts, 16 walks. He went 20 and a third straight, 20 and a third without allowing a hit. 20 and a third straight innings without allowing a hit. And started his game the other day against, I forget who it was against, but starting his start the other day on Saturday. He had the first 12 batters game. I mean, it's just dominance that we haven't seen in any level, certainly not MLB, in quite a long time. That was against LSU. So in LSU's big win over win over LSU, Jack Leiter just sensational. 6 innings, 3 hits, only 1 earned run, which is actually a lot for him. He rarely has any earned runs, but I mean, he's just on another level. And the fact that that Vanderbilt has 2 guys who are going to be MLB aces, I mean, absolutely, in Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, just says a lot about their program, but about the development and depth of college baseball, and how this program is going to have a big impact on MLB in the future, as Kumar and Jack Leiter both going to be very involved and stars in MLB. Kumar in the 38th round by the Rockies in 2018. He's from Georgia, and then Jack Leiter drafted the Yankees, from Jersey. Obviously, neither of them signed, both went to college, but both, when they do get to MLB, are going to be big names. So now, I mean, anybody who in college baseball, really at any level, especially if you best conference in college baseball, the SEC, is not allowing a hit for over 20 innings deserves to be watched and to be followed, and any baseball fan probably should. Also, just doing some predictions. We started last week, but wanted to touch back on this week. I was very impressed with the Orioles, but I don't think they're going to keep this up. I actually don't think the Orioles will be. I think their win total over will hit, which was, I believe, 64.5. And I think the Orioles could win 70 games. I really do. I'm not extremely confident in that, but I'm pretty confident that they're not going to be like the worst team in baseball or anything like that. In the American League, I think Cleveland will be really bad. The White Sox, I don't think will be as good as expected. Detroit, I think, will be one of the worst teams in the American League. Detroit and Texas. Texas specifically, I think Texas could lose 105. Toronto, I think, could be a surprise, could make a push for the playoffs. As I said earlier in the show, the Angels and Mariners as well. National League, I would keep an eye out for St. Louis, Milwaukee specifically. I think the Cubs, they had a good start to the season. They're from Pittsburgh. I don't think the Cubs will be that great. The Pirates, at the bottom, Pirates and Rockies, I think, at the bottom of the National League. Going to be recap each week, and as we get more into the season, predicting different awards, milestones, win totals, home run leaders, hit leaders, still. But obviously, at this point, as not even every team has played a game yet. Washington isn't playing until tomorrow, and the Mets haven't finished a game yet. Pretty much every other team hasn't played 2, 3, 4 games max. A little bit too early to tell, but we'll be keeping tabs on everything from around the league throughout the summer, throughout the season, as hopefully fans can get back in every stadium into higher capacities in the next coming weeks. But for now, I'm just going to recap some of the scores currently going on from the games across the league. The Yankees on top of the Orioles at Yankee Stadium, bases loaded in the bottom of the fifth, 1-0. Pirates on top of the Reds, Cardinals on top of the Marlins. One thing on a game tonight to watch for later tonight. I think Dodgers A's in interleague matchups that you don't see much, always important to watch. But the A's season terribly. Important to see that's going to be a good matchup. Frankie Montas, Dustin May. So that's my game to watch at 9:40 tonight. But until next week, we'll be back for another episode, recapping the first week. That's when we can kind of really get into having a feel for teams, as every team will have played 7 to 10 games roughly. And we will recap the season to that point. So until next week, 7:30 here on Spanglish Sports World, Zingo TV, MLB Bases. My name is Jeremy Schooler, and we'll see you next week.